I'm a fighter.
Welcome, Patriots, to a Wednesday America 1st Patriot Hour with our special guest tonight, Mark Mitchell. POP, can you hear me?
I can.
So everybody's going to see a little bit of problems tonight with my camera, and it's a freaking miracle that I even got it to this point, which I have no idea what happened, but 5 minutes before the show started, the camera decided to go kapooey. So I apologize for the look, but this is the best I got right now, so I hope it looks okay.
It outlines your handsome features.
Oh, boy. I'm so angry right now I could...
Spit nails?
Pretty much, yeah. So I'm still trying to mess with it, so it's not going to take away from our special guest, Mark Mitchell. And it's a great show, great guy. He's going to have some interesting numbers to throw at us tonight, because the last Rasmussen poll that came out tonight had Harris +6, which, remember, it's only 500 people, and it is a cross-section of many different demographics. So don't get alarmed and don't freak out. I know, easier said than done.
I already have freaked out completely myself. So
yes, so
feel
please
free to join me.
Yeah, it's don't let yourself go there, because it's certainly not worth it, because remember, it's just a snapshot. And if you think of all of the things, the demographics, the 18 to 39-year-olds, the married women, the black, the Hispanic, the Arab, Quinnipiac has Trump up +3 in Michigan, Wisconsin. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. Don't let yourself get worried or upset. Wow, this picture is horrible. That thing is absolutely driving me crazy.
If, however, you pass a woman under 30, actually under 40 on the street, know that their desire to have continuous sex with a string of men who don't give a shit about them and then abort said child is the most important thing to them, and treat them accordingly.
Yes, and there's what they call single subject voters. And
yep, and their single subject is being whores who abort children.
Yeah, and we
will
have
so much to be proud of. Thanks, parents of America. You've done a great job with your kids. Thanks.
People, you know what? They are the people that we know exist today. So we know it. I mean, they're there. We understand it. The reality is we got to win this election. We have to get to the point where Trump is in office. We get the dream team in there. We get Elon. We get the RFK Jr., Vivek. We get all these people who are all working on behalf of Trump. She can't do an interview without sounding like a pencil eraser. She can't. So people can call it whatever they want to call it.
She made sure to do an interview on a show that's about being whores. The entire purpose of the show, she appeared on the other day, that Who's Your Daddy podcast, is about women sleeping with as many men as humanly possible. I don't know why God has not struck us down yet, because we deserve it.
Well, we do. And there's a lot of people who've done a lot of bad things, and I know I'm not the perfect person, but where they're at right now it's an ungodly mess. It really is. But
ungodly being the term, yes. Yeah.
Yes. So I digress a little bit. The America 1st Patriot Hour. We're live streaming now on YouTube, X, and Rumble. Chat, I am going to try to bring back up. So, POP, I'm going to give you the floor for a second.
Okay, I'm just going to continue to rail on how disgusted I am by my own gender. You know, like Leo, I'm not perfect, but I was never promiscuous, and I don't understand women who believe that that's the most important thing in life. It's truly sad, and I'm horrified by women. I'm horrified by my own gender. They sicken me to the core of my being. And unless these young women find Christ, they're doomed. So please pray for them. Even though I want to spit on them, I'm going to pray for them, because the only hope we have for our country is more people to come back to God. We are so off the rails, it is not even funny. Can everyone tell I'm in a great mood? My personal life is imploding, my job is a mess, and now I'm terrified we're going to lose the election. So I'm in a great mood. How's everyone else doing? Hopefully people are. I'm messaging my very sweet friend Doug, who says he's the most positive he's ever been about the election. So clearly he's here and I'm here. Back there.
We're going to win, guys.
Like
we're going to win. And if you let them get to you, then you lose.
They get to me.
You do.
Well,
you
I
can't
lose theirs. It works out perfectly well.
You're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We always do. We will. And that brings us to this great moment. So let me get Mark. Mark, let me get you zoomed in here, my friend. Just go ahead and make sure. Can you hear us, Mark?
Hi.
Excellent. Excellent. So let me just get this zoomed.
Mark, make me feel better, please.
Oh, I think there's a lot of good things to feel about right now.
Okay, good. Good.
So our good friend and somebody who's becoming a frequent visitor to the show, somebody that I just absolutely love his numbers, and I love the reality of what it is that Mark is putting out there. Whether a poll shows good or if a poll comes out like the one that came out about 51 minutes ago. Mark, welcome back to the A1st Patriot Hour. You have the POP, so my co-host, POP, say hi again to Mark.
Hi, Mark. Welcome again.
I told her the numbers, and she went in. She almost had a seizure on the show. So, Mark, why don't we start right there? Why don't you explain the last poll? I tried to walk her off the edge a little bit, but I think you could probably do a better job.
Well, everybody's adults here, and I'll tell you, listen, I haven't endorsed a candidate. I haven't really told anybody specifically what any of my political ideology is. All I'm saying to folks is that I'm honest about the numbers, and if I see like lies out there, I'm going to combat them. And because of that, miraculously, my following on Twitter is like 95% Trump supporters because they want honest numbers. And it seems like people on the left just want to be lied to. But yeah, we've been putting those daily numbers out 5 nights a week, and they're really small subsamples, but it's an important thing that we're doing it because there's a lot less polling this time around. And I don't know if that's because everybody got their budgets cut after all the massive misses in 2020, or it's because Donald Trump is doing better in the polls than he has in either of the previous 2 cycles. But what you'll see is a pollster will come and put a number out and then disappear for 2 or 3 weeks and then throw another number over the fence, and it's entirely different. You're seeing some pollsters like Quinnipiac and the recent Reuters Ipsos one had like a 4 or 5 point shift just in a month, and it's like looking at 2 totally different polls. But I'm showing the continuous state of the race, and it just like has not moved. It's been Trump +2 for 4 weeks now. I think tomorrow, our 5th time in the row, might be another Trump +2. And when you look at individual nights, when it's only like 400 results, there's going to be a massive statistical swing. There's like an expected 10-point range that those numbers should be in. So if Trump's doing on average a 48, you're going to see 43s and 53s. And that's just the way it works. And the last 2 nights in a row, I think were Harris +2 and Harris +6, but Trump was up 7 points, I think, 4 nights ago. And I guess we'll see what happens tonight, but I think it'll probably be something positive for Trump. Maybe not. But the race is still going to be Trump tied to +2, and that's absolutely horrible for Kamala Harris. And I think what everybody should be focused on is just the utter slow motion train wreck that's playing out. And I predicted it was going to come. that's been playing out in front of our eyes this week. And maybe not everybody's following the same kind of people I am, but there's palpable desperation as her campaign implodes and people come to the realization the media just wasn't really able to get her within striking distance like they had planned.
Yeah, and it's a media-run campaign, right? So, I mean, anytime she...
Campaign. She's
Yep.
a consumer product candidate. Yep.
Exactly. So when they get her, it's always a benefit if they just can get her to speak. It's like I said earlier before you just came on the show. I said she's basically a pencil eraser. She's just an entity. She tries to talk, and she cannot answer a question logically off the... Like, I can hit you, Mark. I can say, okay, Mark, 18 to 39-year-olds, why is that switch so... You hit Kamala. You hit Kamala with a question like that. She freezes because when you have to search for an answer instead of just speaking with knowledge, it absolutely looks like you're searching, and that's what happens. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. And this is conjecture. I can only presume what's happening in her head. It looks a lot to me like she's operating under a lot of extreme pressure and maybe under some very specific constraints. I think they're horrified of saying the wrong words and that her answers will be used against her. And I think she's probably operating under very strict guidelines of what she's allowed to say or the kind of messages she needs to reinforce. And I think she's probably really actually a lot smarter than people give her credit for. But whatever they have her set up to do, it doesn't seem to be working because it doesn't. Almost everything devolves into, again, sort of like really well selected words, pretty eloquent compared to the kinds of stuff that comes out of my crass mouth, but it doesn't mean anything. None of it means anything.
So, it's an interesting time because America's at a point we probably haven't been at in a long time. 2020, everything that's occurred since then has put America on its back heels. And we've watched everything that's happened for 4 years. And you see it within your own group of people, the pollsters. We see such massive shifts, massive amounts of numbers. The Democrats up +7, Republicans up +2. Quinnipiac comes out and says Trump's up +3 in Wisconsin or +3 in Michigan. Nate Silver comes out and says, oh no, he's losing by. It's just such a conglomerate of conjuncture, like you would say, and it's just so off. And that's why we keep having you come back, because we need somebody to make sense of the madness.
Yeah. Here's how I think it's kind of been playing out for the last couple of weeks. And just to give everybody an idea of how I view this whole situation. And like we talked about, she is, in my opinion, very much marketed like a Hollywood movie in which they, again, subject to constraints. They have constraints in Hollywood. They want to make money, but, there's this person at HR and they just make them hire with the check boxes. And they'd love to do a script about this, but there's no way that would sell in China. And so ultimately what they come out with is their best effort, and they try to make money. They'll put a trailer out that's cut a certain way, and it tries to evoke a feeling in people. And they use the access media to paint propagandistic uniformity of message. And that's exactly, all of that is exactly what they're doing with her. And I could see a month ago it wasn't going to be enough because she had the DNC and they were successful. But what else is she going to do? That she did okay at the debate. But again, we all knew she can't really do interviews. The Taylor Swift endorsement, that stuff didn't move the needle at all. And in my opinion, Trump has always really kind of been winning in the polls. If you look at Real Clear Politics, Pennsylvania aggregate, it's been basically tied for almost a month now. And anybody who knows anything about polling can look at the Real Clear Politics aggregate and say, if they show a Trump tie, then Trump is almost undoubtedly winning that state. And there's the election. Because unless they do greater than normal amounts of get out the vote or some, then the polling industry always leans left, and everybody expects it to this time as well. And so what I've been waiting for is for everybody to just catch up with that narrative, because there are some news outlets with credibility that are going to want to try and ease their viewers into a reality where Trump is winning. And then there's pollsters that want to be right. The ones that accidentally have Harris winning by a lot are going to want to try and shift back. Scott Adams called it. He called this week. He called it out on Monday. The great pollster true up. I think it's starting. Quinnipiac probably is leading the charge. I think you're going to see other people follow suit. But then what else? The other narrative, again, if you don't want to paint the narrative that Harris is winning, it's so easy to cherry pick a few polls and say, look, she is winning, right? But the polls are hard to interpret, but the betting markets are not. And so after that vice presidential debate, I've been very much closely watching Polymarket, who I think was being manipulated by probably dark money PACs or whoever. And after Tim Walz got trounced, the Polymarket betting markets couldn't hold, and the national one swung towards Trump by 8 to 10 points. I think it abated a little bit. It's going back up. And Pennsylvania. So now the polling looks horrible for her in Pennsylvania and nationally. Polymarket looks bad for her, Pennsylvania nationally. She is losing. And now you're seeing the desperation of people all of a sudden, like all this wacky stuff, like all these people shifting their electoral models to show that her path lies through North Carolina instead of Pennsylvania. I don't think so. I think it's interesting to talk about and something that Republicans should be wary about for sure. And you see there were some headlines creeping through from like CNN, like warning signs about her campaign and all these leaks about internal polling. And now the internal polling that's being leaked tells us again, the polling industry is leaning left, because the Democrat Senate candidate internal polls in Michigan and Wisconsin were both Harris +3, and those are Harris up a little bit in the aggregate. So there's a 3 to 4 point polling error left right there in the Rust Belt. So Pennsylvania probably has it too. That means Pennsylvania is a Trump +3 state right now. And you can't have those 3 states go that strongly to Trump and have North Carolina fall. It just doesn't add up. So I think unless something major changes, month 8 years ago on October 7th was the anniversary of the Access Hollywood tape. So we're in October surprise season, but unless something major happens, all you're just going to see is ubiquitous Democrat implosion and press desperation.
Yeah, I mean, they already talked about what the Still dossier again, the Russia. They tried to come out with it this week. So,
yeah,
desperation is really easy to see, because if you're trying to go to something from 4 years ago that was clearly shot down, I guess now, I mean, you're seeing 100,000 people, Butler, PA, rallies. You're seeing momentum. You're seeing massive amounts of people. You're seeing Elon out there. You're seeing Vivek. You're seeing Tulsi. You're seeing people from independents and other parties coming into the Trump campaign. My question now is, and I seen your interview with Brianna Moreno.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That was a great interview. And that is something that I think scares us. The biggest fear I have, because I've said for a long time, is Trump +300 electoral college, and he's got a chance to win the popular vote. He wouldn't be going to California. Why is he going to California? Why is he going to Colorado? Why is he doing those things, I guess, in your judgment, your eyes?
Everybody could go to my Twitter feed or just go follow him directly. Mark Halperin, very well respected in the Beltway, a Politico who knows his stuff, is connected with people, nonpartisan, but talks the straight facts about what he sees. And he had a very great clip, and he's talking to campaign people and big party guys, and the Democrats are not feeling good about their chances right now, and the Trump people are in at least 6 out of the 7 battleground states. and that's just reality. So if you're Trump, and I'm sure that Trump is dialed in and concerned about election integrity. Maybe it's a question about how much, I don't know, but I know they're aware of the problems and they're probably doing things to stop it. But yeah, I mean, if you have a month left and you can go to Democrat strongholds and now all of a sudden you're forcing them to spend money, I think a lot of it might be a money game.
Mm.
And some of it might just be if you look at Trump, like he had rallies back in 2022. He
Mm.
also did lose the national popular vote. He was down in the polls. And he has a lot of stuff now that he didn't have then, like you said, major endorsements. He has
Digital.
Twitter, so all of
Yep.
the leftist censored echo chambers online have all kind of flipped. I think there's probably a lot less election interference going on. And one of the big ones I tweeted about today too is I just took back a look back at primetime viewership for the two left-leaning cable nets. And MSNBC in 2016 had 1.7 million viewership prime time. In 2020, it was 2.7.
Wow.
This year, it's 1.4.
Whew.
They're the lowest it's been in the last 10 years. CNN is even worse. They went from 1.9 to 2.4 down to less than a million now. So people aren't glued to the idiot tube like they were in 2020. And I think that this might be a head fake, right? When you talk about consumed product, like what are the Hollywood marketing people want to create a fear of missing out and word of mouth and all of these things that depend on her being the cool candidate with the upper hand. I think they're seriously scared that if it plays out, the rest of this people are going to just sit out. Their core base might not turn out for her, and that's how you get like a massive Trump overperformance. I think Trump's definitely going to overperform the polls, probably a little bit to the right of where our polls are, which would be a modest win. But again, if Trump has massive positive optics when he goes to Madison Square Garden, which is half that audience is going to be New Jersey people. And you might not have seen it. I put out New York and New Jersey numbers too, which I think really, really show that this is not just a battleground phenomenon. Across the country, there's been a massive shift right in a way that I don't even think our polls are quite frankly catching exactly.
So that's so perfectly said, and you're seeing the shrinkage in a lot of these places. So PLP, I'm going to turn it over to you 1 second. I do think the House and the down balloting is so important, and I think Trump is trying to do stuff to maybe impact, because I think, what do they have? The Senate, there's a 72 or 75% chance that the Republicans will carry the Senate, win the presidency, but they have us losing the House right now, the last numbers I saw. So I'm anxious, and PLP, I'll turn it over to you. But look at the senators in the tight races, and look at some of these House people. They're running away from Kamala because they don't want to be affiliated with that, because they know she's a drain. So PLP, are you feeling better from what Mark is telling you now? Are you feeling a little bit more?
I am. Thank you so much. And I have a question. So, and you even mentioned internals. Whenever, and I was listening to Charlie Kirk today, and he's saying, the Harris campaign sees their internals and they're terrible and it's scaring the crap out of them. Internal polling. Obviously, I know it is done by the campaign versus a pollster like you. Is there anything else inherently different about internal polling that would help us understand that? Okay, so it's just who does it.
So if somebody comes to me and asks me to sponsor a poll publicly, I'm going to say, all right, let's agree on the script. Here's the questions we're going to do. I'll give them advice. At the end of the day, I run the poll. I make the decisions. I release the numbers. They have no say over it. And if I were doing private polling, it would pretty much be the same thing, but I'd give them a little bit more leeway. They own the results. My name's not going to be attached to it. I'm doing the field work for them. And so I'm trying to help them answer a very specific research question they might have. But it's their money, and I'm trying to give them good information. Ultimately, what it comes down to is that if you're paying for polling, you're probably not paying to have somebody lie to you. And I don't lie to people with my polls, so it doesn't make a difference to me. But apparently, a lot of people do, because when you have stories that over and over again this cycle say that the internal polling is a lot less favorable to Harris than the public polling, what they're saying is that all of the media adjacent pollsters are lying and making the numbers look more blue than they should be. That's exactly what it says. So they're paying for the truth, and that's it. There's really no difference about how the polls are conducted.
Thank you. I mean, I always wanted to know if there is any difference. So that makes me feel a bit better also. Thank you.
And the truth.
I know
the
your
truth,
job isn't to make us feel better, but I'll take anything right now because I'm just freaked out.
Well, from my perspective, I hate lies and I hate a media that doesn't do their job. Quite frankly, if the media did their job, you wouldn't need pollsters like me, because I think what we're supposed to do is report on what people in America think as kind of like a report card on how well the media and the government are doing. And they're doing really bad right now because voters don't get what they want. And I can tell you that the individual components of Donald Trump's agenda are what voters want and feel like they haven't gotten from either party in a long time. And so, like, when you see this coordinated government media censorship statist play to kind of crush that, I mean, it's kind of natural that we're going to like push back on those narratives with the real truth. And that's why everybody hates us, and we're basically the pariahs of the industry. And the message that we have right now that is so dangerous is that, yeah, Donald Trump's doing pretty good in the polls, better than he's done in the last 8 years. And they throw fact checkers at us. They try and censor us. The government tried to shut our Twitter account down. We get all these videos demonetized. It is what it is. The truth is dangerous right now.
That it is.
That is so perfectly said. So the truth is very dangerous today. What a psyop! The media, all the media does is campaigns for the left. All they try to do is move the needle. But isn't it funny that, like you said, you talked about the numbers, the 2.7 million down to 1.4 million. You talked about the 2.4 million down to less to a million. I saw CNN going in on Kamala earlier today and yesterday, where the people said, listen, she bombed the 60-minute interview. She's bombing things. There's any normal person can look at this with their own rational mind and say, "Oh boy, that's not good." So you're seeing it play out, Mark, and I guess now becomes the fear of what you talked about a little bit with Brianna is, where does it take us? How bad does it get? Because I've always said Trump's going to win, but the 76 days from November 6th, the day after the election, to January 21st is going to be the scariest time that America is faced in a long time. So could you allude a little bit about the conversation with Brianna, and then what do you think is going to play out if Trump wins like we think he's going to win?
Yeah, we're in like a crazy time period where the media has beclowned itself so much, and we have so much more free speech now than we had just 2 or 3 years ago. And the state has literally overextended itself. It's turned its own federal law enforcement agencies into political weaponization. It used its own federal assets to stage a mock insurrection. It shut down like millions of businesses in our country and leaked a bioweapon from a government-sponsored lab. Like that's where we're at. We're in like literally a proxy World War III, and we've seen legitimate concerns about fraud in the 2020 election, widespread voter fraud. And this isn't conspiracy theories. It literally is a major concern of 66% of voters in this country, because it was met with gaslighting and not real investigations. Nonetheless, this information has come out. We all have been watching these things play out. And so after all of that, I think it's very reasonable for anybody to expect that evasive maneuvers are still on the table. And if it looks like Trump is got the upper hand, I think that's the very next question. And a lot of it, I think, is being like the real problem is that without either Pennsylvania or North Carolina, she's got to run basically a clean sweep of all the other swings. You know, she has to win one of those two. And that's once you throw the hurricane in very conservative leaning parts of North Carolina, all of a sudden all these options open up that weren't on the table just a month ago. And we're already seeing breathless reports out of Axios about how local officials and legislatures are writing new laws to enable people to vote who wouldn't otherwise. And then you also see like people like David Axelrod callously writing off people who are really like hurting and don't have power. And I mean, from a political standpoint, because they think it's just going to help them by returning, restoring the blue areas. Like, listen, North Carolina hasn't gone blue since 2008. It is probably, our polling showed this cycle that it's Trump +3. And I still think that's too left. I think it's a Trump +4 or 5 state. And yet that's when you look at that, that's hundreds of thousands of ballots, like 1 to 200. It's not a massive amount. They can do things to impact that kind of margin. And it's things that need to be met with some kind of effort to prevent them. Like, you can have mail-in ballots disappear. You can have ballots inserted. You can have like all these kind of things. They can, and ultimately, I think the big concern, and we're polling in North Carolina again. We're going to put a new question about, how fast the votes are counted. I think one of the big concerns too is just they could just stop and say, well, it's close, but we'll never know until all these other ballots show up. And unless there's some kind of proactive way to deal with that, and I hope there is, and there probably should be, then we could have some real problems. Because if it literally comes down to Trump tied or led the national popular vote, won all the swing states he needed to, except for North Carolina, and now we're going to be counting ballots for, the 2000 election was not a healthy thing for this country.
No.
It was a nightmare.
So we're on with Mark Mitchell, lead pollster from Rasmussen. Mark is the second time on the show, and we have Mark on because we want people who tell the truth, because Americans deserve it. I'm, of course, pro-Trump, America first. I'm ex-military. She's ex-FBI. But you look at the deterioration of our country, and you look at how the media is played. You look at how these people, the stuff they're saying about Trump now, he's Hitler. He's going to prosecute all these people. He's going to do all these things, Mark. So bad. But they're all things that they're currently doing, which is amazing to me. But just by the CNN and the MSNBC and the numbers starting to shrink and come down, people are smart. We don't get to see the silent majority. You do probably in your numbers. Somebody like me doesn't get to see it, but I guess explain that a little bit. That silent majority is so important, and you can tell what people are thinking just by some of the stuff that we're seeing, right?
We don't just do election predictions. We're trying to actually understand public opinion. We're very few pollsters who are almost entirely dedicated to that. And so after the election, when everybody licks their wounds and goes away again, we'll still be polling the very next day on topics that we think are important. So I have some really fascinating numbers to share that I'd like to run through that shows you the breadth of problem we have. But the issue definitely is that there's a deeper underlying psychology that isn't explained fully by party, that is most explained by whether somebody trusts Joe Biden or not, is the best proxy that we have right now, that is driving our country closer than it's ever been to civil war. We have a number over 40% of people who think a civil war is likely in the next few years. We're actually testing that again. We haven't tested it in a while. things are really bad. And looking back at just those MSNBC and CNN numbers, like you said, CNN is letting the veil slip. CNN is letting some negative headlines into their lineup about Harris, but their viewership has collapsed from 2.4 million to 900,000 in the last 4 years. MSNBC's primetime viewership has collapsed from 2.7 to 1.4. So MSNBC has collapsed less than CNN. And as we all know, MSNBC is like O'Keefe just had the video. They're literally an arm of the Democrat Party.
Yes.
And one of the questions, so we just did a swing state set of 10 states 2 weeks ago. And we asked really fascinating questions. And everybody can get these if they want to go to our site. It's free. You might have to like Google around for it. But we asked, which cable TV news channel would you be most likely to trust? CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and Newsmax. And then we treated that like a demographic. So like, hey, instead of black, white, Hispanic, let's look at how MSNBC people answer questions versus Fox News people. And I can tell you they care about very different topics. So we asked the question, which issue is the most important one for the next president to solve? Abortion rights, illegal immigration, rising prices, or protecting our democracy. And let me make sure I have the order right. So for MSNBC people, their number one issue was protecting democracy. And this is across all 10 states combined. 46% of MSNBC viewers say that's number one. And 28% say abortion. So if you add that up, that's like 3/4 of them say those two issues. But for Fox News and Newsmax people, it's 80% of people that say illegal immigration and border or prices. So like there you have it. People who watch Fox News and Newsmax, like those are very ideologically pure, so to speak. But objectively, rising prices and illegal immigration are real problems that Biden caused. Right? Protecting democracy and abortion rights are not real problems that Trump. They're things that the people that are watching these channels are being told Trump is going to take away from them. And maybe he will, maybe he won't, but there's reasons to think that that's kind of an irrational belief. And so it's a very widely viewed channel. It reaches, probably tens of millions of people over the span of a month. And I think the number was 17% of swing state voters trust MSNBC most. And they are irrationally radicalized in issues that are basically fake issues. That's a problem. And I'll tell you another one that also kind of blew my mind. This was a record. Who is the biggest enemy currently facing America? Iran, China, Russia, the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, or domestic extremists? And for the first time, the Democrat Party won. 24% of swing state voters say the Democrat Party. But MSNBC, 43% of MSNBC viewers say Republicans, although 56% of Newsmax people say Democrats. So, but that's that's a really big deal. And so 66%, 2/3 of MSNBC viewers think it's Republican Party or domestic extremists, so MAGA types. So that there's an irrational amount of fear. And again, we're talking about a situation where more people than ever think we're in the brink of a civil war. So in my opinion, and in voters' opinions, the media is the enemy of the people. It's really the reason we're here. But to some extent, I think Elon did an interview with Tucker, and he was kind of right. It's gotten to this sort of semi-religious, cult-like mentality where there really are two lines being, like a line being drawn here, and it's literally over Trump. Like that's what this comes down to.
Oh, the media has done a great job of Orange Man bad.
Yep.
We've heard that for so many years. Trump's going to do this, Trump's going to do that. Isn't it funny though? He's never done that. He had a chance to really prosecute Hillary. He didn't. He had a chance to go after people. He didn't. He tried to play ball in his first 4 years, and you saw where that got him. And the country was still in much better shape because it's not just the Democrats and the media psyop, it's the Republicans. There's many within the party that's holding on, the establishment, Mark. They're holding on for dear life because MAGA and America First is starting to drag them the other way. And again, when we say MAGA, Mark, it's Make America Great. We haven't rioted like and burned down cities in Minnesota. We aren't protesting. We're not out in millions shutting down businesses. We don't do none of that stuff. And when the facts start to come out that the media has hid, that's why people like you are so important, because you're drilling down. And we need those drill down numbers. We need a source of truth. We need something that's going to be out there that helps show people, because that's what people need right now, Mark. They need the truth.
Yeah. I had a conversation.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
I was going to say, could you also comment as to whether or not you have questioned the Civil War question since the Trump assassination attempt, 1 or 2?
No, that number was before. Yeah.
Okay, because that's going to be interesting.
We're going into 6 swing states today with a refresh of the Civil War question. And actually, based on some feedback we've gotten from people, it's actually, how likely is it in the next few years America will experience another civil war or a revolution? So we added that in there because everybody says, well, there's not going to be a civil war. Trying to
a revolution. Yeah, I'm on the revolution game. I'm on that bandwagon. So,
another interesting question.
I'm going to go to jail.
Yeah, well, no, we're going to stay out of that.
See the results of that probably starting Monday. And again, none of that will be behind a paywall. It'll be at RasmussenReports.com. And we're doing North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada. What's the people wanted Ohio too for the Senate race. You talked about the Republicans, and I just wanted to tell a story. I won't say who it was, but I spoke with a representative from the office of a senator, and they're Republican, conservative leaning, one that people would say is solid, right? And they were interested specifically in a topic we had, so I shared some polling with them. But I said, like, hey, if you ever need anything, just tell me, tell me what crosstabs you want. I'll send them to you. I'd love anybody to see. I'll send them to Democrats. I'll send my numbers anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, we're getting beat up on some of these topics. And I'm like, well, tell me what about? And they're like, well, abortion's a big issue and it's so important to Democrats. And I'm like, well, Americans say that they're pro-choice, 53% to 37%. But look at these crosstabs here. Only 15% of Americans want abortion after 6 months. And not even half of Joe Biden's sicko strong supporters, not even half of them, want abortion after 3 months. So in all reality, the vast majority of voters actually want very strong limits on abortion. They just don't want a fake, Hitler to come in and take it all away. And the thing is with the messaging, and the reason that the Democrats win on that topic is just because nobody trusts the Republicans. But if they wanted to win, they would use my poll numbers and fund me to sponsor me to do more polling on that or any of the many issues. Because if you remember, Mike Johnson just rolled over on that, kick the can and on the SAVE Act. And overwhelmingly, a vast majority of voters, including even almost half of Democrats, wanted the government shut down to prevent illegal aliens from being able to be registered to vote. And I showed them that, and nobody cared. They didn't use that polling. Nobody was talking about that on Capitol Hill. And we poll more than anybody else on these topics. I have competitive advantages where I can poll cheaper than most people. And if they wanted to win on these issues, if the DC conservative establishment wanted to win, my phone should be burning up right now, and it's not. We're treated just the same, basically, from the Republican establishment and the Democrat establishment. So,
Mark, 90% of the Republicans right now are establishment uniparty. Johnson's proved it, Scalise, Stefanik, all these people that are so-called, I call them coattail grabbers, they're holding on to Trump because they want to get reelected. But then you go look at their heritage scores on my website. We've put the heritage score button and we've put their stock trade. Now you want to hear an interesting fact. There's 500 plus people in Congress, in Senate and House. The top 100 median average is $6.8 million is what they're worth. Just the top 100. That's senators and representatives. Yep. The median average income of 345 million Americans is $37,585. So you have people in the top 10 is over $2.4 billion in just stock money. So we're being governed by people that we elect who are chasing the dark money, the donor money. They're chasing things that is contrary to what the American voters. Did you see yesterday, RFK Jr. put out a new thing that he said we're going to do? We're going to reach out to polling groups, to people, to American voters, and we're going to ask them about policies.
Yeah, I saw that.
Do you know how incredible that is? Because aren't we the ones voting for these clowns? We're the people voting to put them in office. They get into office so that they can make money, most of them. And that's why people like me are going to go after them and uncover how much money they're making and why. But you do polls and you do the truth, and the Republicans should be coming to you, but they're compromised weasels. Johnson, oh my God. But look at what RFK's putting out there. Shouldn't people be flocking to stuff like that?
Well, yeah, but quite frankly, he doesn't need to do it. He could just call me up and I'll give him every poll that we've run in the last 20 years, right? So it's not like it's a surprise that conservatives want the government shut down so that we can get spending cuts. It's not a surprise that 80% of Republicans think that elections are stolen. It is not a surprise that literally zero Republicans want slavery reparations. But just so they can't hide from it, we've done the numbers. They're all there. I'd happily do them again. And it's just like they don't do what Republicans want, like, period. And what's weird is, like, the Democrats do what Democrat voters don't want. Republicans don't do what Republican voters do want. It's just like the corollary of what happens. Because, like, if you ask them if the border is important, Democrats say no. But they're not like 100% pro-amnesty, or they do not like the idea of illegals pouring across the border, but they have leaders who ubiquitously say the border is going to be open. So the power dynamics are just totally broken, and it does need to be fixed somehow, because, again, I want to get to a world where voters get what they want, and I'm really kind of at a loss of, like, what else I can ask about it. I put another one into the field today that will get results back. But when you think about the next president and how they will govern the country, which is closer to your opinion that things should return to business as usual in Washington, D.C., or that Washington, D.C. is in need of a major change, like, I don't know. It's tough to ask the questions. I can't say drain the swamp, because then people will have some kind of, like, antiviral reaction to it. But it's like, this is why nobody trusts Congress. It's why none of the leaders in D.C. have very high marks. It's why Mitch McConnell is hated almost as much as Nancy Pelosi is among Republicans. They just don't get what they want.
Well, Mitch McConnell's, his heritage score right now is 39%. You saw Mitt Romney come out.
It's actually higher than his Republican approval rating. It is.
You know how sad that is? Do you know how sad of a number or a statement is that you just said?
Yeah. Yeah. If somebody from his office could call me up and I could recommend, like, 10 things that he could do to support to fix that. Right? Like,
Mark, you're somebody that's going to scare the shit out of DC. You know that, right? Because you're going to provide answers they don't really want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's a tough one. I don't know how a Trump win sets off a very long chain of complicated events that will be that will make for a fascinating 4 years. And of course, I'll be there polling the whole way through. But I mean, you're talking transition, transfer of power. What does an overhaul of the federal government look like? But then the main problem is that Trump wins and gets in. They have thousands of positions that they need to fill with people in DC. And quite frankly, from my own personal experiences, I think very little of the people within DC are aligned with the MAGA agenda. And that creates a really big problem because ostensibly, if I don't know if this thing with Elon, how serious it is, but if they get in and start hacking major parts of the federal government out, like you're also going to have a question about like how do you staff all this stuff? At a certain point, it's like, well, you might just have to start over in like St. Louis, or I don't know, but like it's really incredible because every single one of these agencies is, in my opinion, geared against the people. Just like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, again, came out with like, what a great jobs report right before an election. They took
Until they revise it.
Well,
Yeah.
we've been running our own unemployment rate since April, and they came out with a 4.1. My number for the month, based on almost 10,000 people we asked, was 8.7. Like, and they like I asked 9,300 whatever it was, like over 9,000 people, what's your employment situation? 8.7% of Americans say I'm unemployed and looking for work. It's like I don't even know how I would get from 8.7 to 4.1%, even if I wanted to.
Yeah, they get to a lot of numbers. They get to how crime is lower. They get to how inflation's lower. I mean, DC is just lies. It's all about mistruths, misinformation, selling it to the people, changing people. Before nations can change, people have to change. MSNBC, you said, reaches how many households? It's scary.
Yeah.
Because even on the Republican side, how many times has Mitch McConnell been reelected? How many times do we keep putting people back in office who clearly doesn't have our part of the equation or our side of it?
I'm sure you've heard the stories from MAGA candidates who've run it in the past and run into issues with the establishment. I think it's a very real thing. It's a very real problem. I think new leadership at the RNC is a step in the right direction. I can tell you we polled on that. I'm not conjecturing about any of this.
Right, you're just
we asked
telling
Republicans if they wanted Ronna McDaniel and somebody else. Ronna came in a distant third behind Mike Lindell and Harmeet Dillon. And it's because they don't like how the Republican Party works. They want new leadership, and now they have it. But of course, they're desperately locked in campaign mode. So I guess we'll see what that looks like.
Are you allowed to ask? So are you allowed to poll and ask questions like, how scared are conservative voters that there will be a third assassination attempt on Trump?
Give me a sec to bring that up while we talk. Of course. I mean, literally, nothing's off the table. Like, what's off the table is I won't ask questions that like inflame people or gross them out because I don't want people dropping off the call and skewing my results.
Right.
And I want the questions to be like plain language and simple and not have any like built-in bias to them. But yeah, we've asked this. Here's a crazy one. We've polled quite a bit about the assassination attempts, in fact. And quite frankly, in my opinion, the conservative audience doesn't really care about the topic that much. It's like they almost expected it to happen. So this is from September 18th to 22nd. How likely is it that there will be more assassination attempts against Trump between now and Election Day? 65% of voters said at least somewhat likely. 75% of Republicans, 43% of Republicans said very likely. 64% of independents said likely. So it's like, yeah, it's happened twice. It's probably going to happen again. I don't know how exciting that finding is. Then we asked, this wasn't our best question, but there was a second assassination attempt against Trump in July, since July, which is more likely that the people trying to assassinate Trump are suffering from mental illness or that people are motivated by the rhetoric of Trump's enemies. And Trump's enemies wins 49-36. And Republicans, 63% say rhetoric, only 28% of Republicans say mental illness. And rhetoric wins 53% to 33% among independents. So the way I would say that is strong majorities of Republicans and independents blame Trump's enemies for inciting violence that will most likely happen again between now and Election Day.
A third assassination attempt. That's
People expect it. That's what it comes down to.
I do. I mean, POP does. We've talked about it. My biggest fear.
And like these people aren't getting the news reports where it's like, oh, there's 5 active cells within the U.S. This is all, the average person we poll literally has no idea what's going on most of the time. So this is like, they're just getting this subconsciously. It's like, yeah, they're trying to kill Trump. They know it. And we also asked if there was anybody complicit. Although I will say that this is only a week and a half after the attempt. Gunman acted alone, 53%. He had help from others, 34%. How likely is it the gunman had help from? How likely is it that some federal government officials were part of a conspiracy to assassinate Trump? 41% say at least somewhat likely, 20% varied. Only 32% say not at all likely. And 59% of Republicans say it's at least somewhat likely that the government officials were involved in the first assassination attempt. I mean, like, that's where we're at. Like, Republican, like, Trump supporters know. Like, it's like they expected this to happen.
Well, I mean, they can't beat him. They're not going to beat him this time. They've put enough stuff in place. You talked about Harmeet. They just put her in charge of Arizona. So I was like, thank God for that.
Yeah, True the Vote people are in North Carolina. I understand.
Yep. They won. They won a lawsuit in North Carolina. They won a lawsuit in Michigan. So I think a lot's different. So, Mark, what's the big stuff that you're going to be working on over the next couple of weeks? What can you tell the viewers about Mark, Mitchell, Rasmussen? What are you guys going to be doing?
Well, we're going to be upping our nightly sample, so hopefully that should cut down on a lot of the swing that people are seeing. So we're going to continue to be the only people putting out daily presidential numbers between now and Election Day. You'll be able to find that on Twitter at Rasmussen_poll. We're doing, like I said, 6 states literally tonight. I'm getting off the show and finishing up the online programming. And those should be back maybe starting Friday, Monday at the latest. And that's a really packed set of questions. Like, it has the Civil War stuff in it. It's got some more media stuff. And then we're going to try and sort of like pound out the last set of like pre-election stuff to try and nail down what this is really about. We have the Are You Better Off Than You Were 4 years ago question coming out. We're trying a couple of other novel angles to really get at what this election is over. And like, to be honest though, I think the way I said it in the beginning is like what we're going to witness. I think there are very few things left that could actually swing this race meaningfully. I think Trump has the high ground between now and Election Day with all the optics. The polling is in his favor more than it ever has been. It seems like you said that he's sort of upped his legal deterrence game, let's just say. Mm-hmm. And I said it in one of my videos, I think she needs an act of God to win, but sometimes they get what they need, right? So if nothing like that happens, I think between now and Election Day, you see a lot of desperation. a lot of things to make fun at, a lot of people in my Twitter feed flaming on me for just reporting the numbers.
I saw
And I
some of
don't
that
think the
today.
numbers are going to move.
No.
I want to try and get into the swing states one more time after we're done with this set. And if, in a week, if I can't, maybe I'll put up a crowdfunding campaign or something like that.
Sounds fantastic. POP, any final questions for Mark?
No, thank you. As of course, very informative as usual. And I actually feel better. And I was ready to jump off a bridge at the beginning of this call. So thank you.
I told him, I said, listen, give Mark a chance because he's going to tell you the straight scoop. But Mark, you do a fantastic job. You're absolutely a friend of the show. We love having you on. Before the election, I would love to see your numbers again because the stuff that you're asking is the stuff that the Republicans should be focused on. And people like our show, we want to show that. So we appreciate you very much, Mark.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you appreciate public opinion. If our government was functioning correctly, then I would have a lot more business. So we kind of have a vested interest, right? But seriously, voters aren't getting what they want. And maybe the takeaway after this whole Biden administration is that was a major mistake. Hopefully we learn that.
Let's see if we can get Mark Mitchell and Rasmussen up to the forefront because you guys should be. Because that's where we want our government to be.
Yeah.
Mark, listen, man, we appreciate you very much. I know you're busy. Thank you so much for giving us a couple minutes of your time. We really appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. Happy to come on.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, POP, Mark Mitchell. How do you feel now? You got a little smile. I see the smile in your face.
Oh, I feel so much better. And I love that they pull the issues. If our government was accountable to the people, they would reach out to Mark and say, how do people feel on this? How do Republicans feel on this issue? And then they would vote accordingly because, again, they're supposed to represent us. We no longer have a representative government. We have a government that gives us the finger every minute of every day, does exactly what is in their best interest, whether to enrich themselves, achieve their retirement job, or whatever it is that they're in there to do, but they no longer represent us. And the information about how to represent us is out there because of people like Mark. I don't know. Every day I'm so sickened by our government that I don't know how my head doesn't explode. It's pretty soon it's going to need to be held together with duct tape because it is actually going to come apart. Like I will become a meme because one day we'll just be on here and my head will actually blow up.
Yeah, I don't think we don't want to see that, POP. But you're right. It's 40% of people think civil war. I mean, you see the numbers that Mark's talking about. There's a concern in America. Yep. And our show has done it the right way because we champion people like Mark. And all Mark wants is a platform because realistically, Mike Johnson, Mitch McConnell, the Republican leadership should have a guy like that damn near working for him, doing nothing but polling the people because it's all about the people. And
but
when
they
you
don't
hear,
care.
No,
they don't care.
When you hear a guy like Mark talk, he's telling you DC does not give a shit about the people.
They don't. They are literally working against not only our best interests, but our desires and the reasons that we put them in office. And that's why there will be a revolution or a civil war if these bastards don't start listening to the people, because we're basically we lay down every night and they roll over us over and over. And I'm, for one, I'm tired of being rolled over.
Yeah, doing this show has been one of the greatest things I've ever done, but it's been one of the most eye-opening. Talking about the median score, these people making $6.7 million. The top 10 making $2.4 billion. I mean,
they're completely out of touch with everything that we want. They're out of touch with us financially. To say that we have a representative government is such a freaking farce. It's there's no such thing anymore.
No, it's not that way. And right now, you're seeing the desperation because they're fighting very hard to hold on. It's not just the Democrats; it's the establishment party, the neocons.
Right.
They're holding on.
The rhinos know their time is over too. It might not happen this cycle, but they're all going.
Well, great show, and we championed through. Even though you can see my XSplit VCam logo, which
I forgot it was there, so I guarantee nobody else can see it.
I tried desperately to make sure this. Go ahead.
Don't forget Sunday night I begin popping off.
Yes, popping off with the POP. We will be finishing up her set, and I need to get your input, Miss POP. So I'm going to be throwing some stuff at you, and then we will be putting that out there.
Young women whores again. I will be calling young women whores again on Sunday night.
I'm going to be off the show and just the producer in the back doing the mute button. So when she starts going a little too popping off, we'll be. You'll hear is.
Am I going to have a time delay?
Probably, and then you're just going to hear her going, "What the bleep bleep bleep?"
No, you're just going to see like the old movies where my mouth moves and nothing comes out. Leo just muted me.
It'll be exciting though, and she deserves it, and it'll be a great show, and we want you guys to please come and support her. I'll be putting out the links. You'll see it. You'll see the stuff going to Rumble. Guys, you'll see it on YouTube. You're going to see it on X. And just so people understand how the show is reaching, right now we have 4,483 views on X.
Wow.
So if you don't think people care about people like Mark and people want to hear the truth, they absolutely do. And this is a truth-telling show. And I'm so proud that we can get on here, even with the technical difficulties that, my God, I need a producer so bad, and pull 5,000 people across. I don't even know what we've done on YouTube, but it is so exciting. And just for your guys' understanding, YouTube, we started 3 weeks ago. We've went over 1,250 subscribers. People want to hear the truth. Mark Mitchell laid out some stuff that should either scare the shit out of you, make you feel extremely great, or a mixture of both. But he told you straight stuff. He told you truth. He told you what people are telling him. That's fascinating to me. That's why I like having Mark on, because he gives me stuff that causes me to get off the show and go, holy shit. Doesn't it, the stuff he's bringing up, make you just sit there and rub your head? Well, we don't want the POP's head to do a meme.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't want any of that stuff to happen. So, all right, final thoughts, POP.
No, just, a lot to think about. I'm feeling more positive personally. We do have the momentum. We do have the zeitgeist. We do have the energy behind us and behind Donald Trump. And, we should win this election. But,
Guys, we are winning. The biggest thing now is keeping Trump breathing. That's my biggest concern. We're winning the Arab vote. We're winning in Hispanic. We're winning the independent. We're winning the 18 to 39-year-olds. We're winning the married women. We got to get Christians and gun owners to please commit and get out there and vote. If you are Christian and you care about our children and our future.
I'll be talking about that on Sunday. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she's going to be popping off on that.
I'm going to pop like a mofo on that. Yeah.
Just don't get yourself nixed the first night, POP.
I won't.
So, POP, thank you. I appreciate you as always. It's a great show. We got over 5,000 views between Rumble and YouTube. So, Mark Mitchell, thank you. If you're not following Mark, what are you doing?
Yeah, really.
I follow that dude like I get up every morning, I look at Poly Market, and then I go find Mark.
Like white
Because-
on rice.
He is telling you stuff that look what he just did for POP tonight. I told him about the +6 Harris, and she was like, shit. And Mark gets done, and she's like, okay, this is great. I'm feeling much better now.
Mm-hmm.
So trust me, truth is important. We got to get there. Popping off the POP Sunday. Guys, thank you all for tuning in. It's a great show. As always, stand tall, be accountable. Do not let them take your hope. They are in desperation mode. They are tripping right now. They are. They're flailing like a baby. They're scared, they're worried, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes. There's a lot of gnashing of teeth because there's a lot of people that could be held accountable, and rightfully so. So don't let them take your hope, and make sure, as always, you guys are roaring loud enough that they can hear you. Tune in Sunday for the popping off with the POP. Everyone have a great night, okay? God bless.
Night.
America first.